It's the life
Yes,
of the
yo.
underdog. Throw it up, throw it
Y'all are
up, throw
tuned
it
into
up, throw it up.
ATSIC.
Yeah, it's the life of the underdog.
Yes, yo.
Throw it up, throw it up, throw it up, throw it up. Yeah, it's the life of the underdog. Throw it up, throw it up.
Y'all are tuned into
It's
ATSIC.
cafeteria table rap, sloppy joes and foreclosed loans. Fuck your Prada and Versace clothes. This is broken bone, stone stove from snotty nose. Fingers to the plain clothes, came up off of body blows. This is casserole rap, fresh out the Tupperware. Sitting in that kitchen chair while little sister cuts your hair. This ain't for debonair millionaires if you wanna wear. Fists up in the fucking air, always knew it wasn't fair. This is food bag, rice sacks, and hand-me-down tennis shoes. Plastic bags and boots to make them weatherproof. Boosting tapes out west gated Delphi booth. The one for your cousin, this ain't something for the sheltered youth. Sharpie marks on those detention tables. My grandma taught me never bet against your better angels. So somehow I sprouted wings out of those devil's cradles. Fists up for all my underdogs or any labels. It's the life of the underdog. Throw it up, throw it up, throw it up, throw it up. Yeah,
Y'all are tuned
it's the
into
life of the
ATSIC.
underdog. Throw it up, throw it up, throw it up, throw it up. Yeah, it's the life of the underdog. Throw it up, throw it up.
Y'all are tuned into ATSIC.
Yeah,
Treaty
it's the
7,
life of the underdog. Throw it up, throw it up, throw it up,
yes,
throw it
y'all.
up. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Welcome aboard, everybody. My name is Doobyis, and this here is a little offshoot of my mix show. My mix show is called After the Smoke is Clear. You can always find that mixcloud.com/Doobyis. But for right now, this segment is something I like to call Fly Information. It's a segment I've been doing, just talking to artists across Canada, and I wanted to learn more about different scenes across the map and the different artists who make them up. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who maybe know, a handful of artists from their own city, and I'm talking about listeners here mostly, but know a handful of artists from their own city, but maybe aren't really like up on the independent music that comes out from all the other cities across the map. So really just trying to get more music into more people's ears and learn a little bit as I go about it. Going into this interview, I tweeted out that I only actually know a handful of artists from Saskatchewan. Skizza here with me is one of those artists, so I'm looking forward to getting to hear a little bit more kind of about the Sask scene, really, because I know, I've heard Saskatoon talked about as Toontown. I know that there must be a scene out there. I just I'm not tapped into it at all. I could probably name like you and Factor Chandelier, Ray the Nihilist, maybe Parab Poet from the Hip Hop Hippies, those guys out there, but that's kind of the end of my list of Saskatchewan artists. So without further ado, Skizza, thanks for joining me. You have a new project out, Bridge City Underdog. Came out within a month ago?
Yeah, it came out on the 18th of last month, so just a couple weeks ago now.
Right on, yeah. So I guess maybe just tell us briefly about the project. Give us the description. How would you describe that album?
The elevator pitch, yeah. I mean, it's a rap album. That's the basic thing. It's about 16 tracks long. It's kind of got a throwback sort of 90s style. That's what I'm into. The beats were all made by a producer from Germany named Yakuzi, and they're all kind of sampley, a little bit more low tempo, 80 BPM, 85 BPM ish.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different kinds of topics and styles in the music, but mostly I feel like really strong lyricism, good poetry. I like to write songs from my experience, from my life. Lots of wordplay and like tricky stuff like that because I'm an English major.
Yeah, nice. I hear it, man. Lots of golden era boom bap influence in the music. But it's also not all like crunchy old school stuff either. Like that track Grinding with the Mighty Rhino on there or whatever.
Yes.
Like, you got some 808s going behind that and definitely some kind of new school vibes on that or whatever. It's interesting that they were all produced by the same dude. How did you guys link up? Was it just an online shout out kind of thing?
Yeah, it was like a online connection. You know, found his beats online, sent him a couple emails. We talked back and forth a little bit, and then yeah, it just kind of went from there. And at first, it was just doing a few songs, and then it just like each subsequent one, I was like, oh, I want to rap on this beat also. Oh, I want to rap on this beat, and then it ended up becoming kind of a whole album at that point, which is cool because like I do like to do the, you know, I have 4 albums out now, and 3 of them were all produced by the same person. You know, like my first album, Fall 7 Rise 8, is all Big Boy tracks, and then the album I did before this, Beautiful, with my homie AK from Regina, we did that like hand in hand together, and he did all of the tracks on that. So I do like to be able to do that, to, you know, have like
one MC,
sort of
one producer for the
one
entire project.
Yeah, one MC, one producer. It's dope. It's like it's not, you know, I don't do it all the time, but more often than not, and it's cool. Everything kind of fits nicely together then, even especially if a producer's like diverse enough that you get those different sounds, like you were saying, like Grind is like kind of like a Houston, which like is also stuff like I grew up like Rap a Lot and like Devin the Dude and stuff like that, some of my favorite music also. So
so you've done like you said, you have 4 albums out. When I was looking on Spotify, it looked like 3 of them are from the last 3 years. Is that right?
I guess like each of these 4 years, like 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, I put out an album. I've been trying to keep pretty busy these last, you know, couple of years, especially. Just
so I wanted to ask, like, when you see an artist with that much output, it raises a question in my mind, like, is this a concerted effort to be constantly visible, stay putting out music, stay having content coming out, or is it more just you're making a bunch of music and it might as well come out when it's done kind of thing?
It's definitely more the latter. Like I'm always making music. It's what I like to do. I'm borderline like brain dead when it comes to marketing. So like I don't have, like, if I'm being honest, I don't have like a strategy where I'm like, oh, I have to release every this many months to stay at the top of algorithm. Like I know that's a bad, like I know I need to know that stuff that an independent artist has to, but it's not really where my brain's at.
I'm still trying to decide whether independent artists really need that or not, because I think there are some who do it and then there's some who don't, and there's some successful in both of those camps, right? So I think the music speaks for itself, man. And like Bridge City Underdog is a great project. I really enjoyed that. I really like the stuff you've been putting out lately, and you can, it vibes well with my own personal tastes. You know, I've been making a concerted effort to try and spread my the stuff that I play across the spectrum of hip hop. So it's not all golden era boom bap stuff, but a lot of what I really like is. And so, you know, there'll be a trap episode on After the Smoke is Clear here or there, or whatever other types of flavors mixed in. But yeah, your stuff is right at home with most of what I'm playing on here. Can you help me out though? Are there artists in Saskatoon, or are you reaching out to these diverse producers like you are because there aren't producers in Saskatoon? You're based in Saskatoon, right?
Yeah, I'm in Saskatoon, born and raised. There's tons of artists in Saskatchewan though. Like I said, the previous album I did to this was produced by my homie AK. He's from Regina, Saskatchewan.
Sure. Okay.
And he's been doing a ton of work with people from Saskatchewan, especially more in Regina area. He just released the album last month also that he produced with VIP, who's a rapper and singer from Regina. Okay. Super dope album. I would check that out. VIP and AK Productions. But there's tons of artists. In terms of like I'm kind of scatterbrained, as you can probably tell through this interview. Sometimes I like to just like be able to, especially when I'm doing these solo albums, to just be like, just grab a beat and like, just like come up with what I want to come up with. And so sometimes like the more online, like more casual interactions facilitate that a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I also like doing the opposite, like I did with AK, where it's more hands-on on both sides.
I feel you on both those, because I've done projects with one producer, and then like last night I was talking to Ilvis Freshly, and they were talking about what it's like working as a group and how, you know, it forces you to compromise a little bit
Mhm.
more than maybe you'd have to if, like you said, you're just buying a beat from somebody online and then you get to sit and work on it until that's exactly what you want it to sound like or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, put it by the other guy, the producer too, probably, or whatever. But
Mhm.
it definitely allows you to really flex that that artistic muscle and focus right in on what you want to do with it. Which I think like is something that most MCs probably are trying to do. I mean, we're all people who are propelled to do this and jump on stage and grab a microphone and talk. So like, I feel like we all must have some type of singular reason for doing it. You know what I mean? What would you say brought you into this? Like, why did you pick up a mic and start rapping in the first place?
Man, that's like a big question, right? Like,
For sure.
why do we make things? You know, like,
Yeah.
I've been thinking about that, like just the act of creating something. We're only on this earth for, you know, if we're lucky, 80, 90, 100 years. If we're unlucky, maybe a lot less than that.
Yeah.
And it's like, just like the idea of making something is cool to me. You know, it might not even be any deeper than that, just that like I have the capacity to think of something in my head and to then, you know, bring the best reproduction of that into the real world that I possibly can.
Yeah.
As far as it being rap versus anything else, I think that's just the fact that I love rap so much that, and that when I was, you know, younger and starting to figure out that, you know, maybe I do want to do something creative, I was obsessed with rap. So it wouldn't have ever really been anything else except maybe comic books, except I learned pretty early that I cannot draw no matter how hard I try. So it was like, well, I can't be a cartoonist, but you know, I'm not bad with words.
Go
If I
with your natural
practice, maybe I
talents.
can do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Makes sense. So as far as like an actual kind of like boots on the ground scene out in Saskatchewan, are there open mic nights? Are there radio shows going on like university style? I mean, my show plays here in Lethbridge on the U of L station, and I know that a lot of the university stations are kind of like the real home of hip hop. I feel like, you know,
Yeah.
because they actually have DJs who are paying attention to the scenes. And it not just necessarily following the algorithms or whatever, but as far as kind of, you know, booking shows and that type of thing, like how is the actual community out in Saskatoon or Regina?
It's pretty dope. I can't speak to Regina too much. I play down there now and then, but I have never lived there, so I
Okay.
don't have the same context. In Saskatoon, we have Third Verse, which is a radio show on CFCR, which is our community radio.
Yeah.
Awesome show. I think it's one of the longest running hip hop community radio shows in all of Canada, as far as I've heard.
I think so too. Yeah. That's
And it's
Chap's
amazing.
rocking it, right?
Yeah. Chaps is rocking it. Chapter Thrive. They've had a bunch of different hosts throughout the years. I've been in the studio a couple times to talk about past projects before COVID kind of nixed all of that. And that they've always been, you know, like when I was still learning about more underground hip hop, you know, tuning into Third Verse was the way I found out about, you know, living legends and shapeshifters and a lot of the like really underground music that they were playing to kind of expand my opinions on things. As far as open mics, there are open mics in Saskatoon, but they're not hip hop centric.
Right.
You can show up, you can rap, they'll appreciate it. But you're going to be in between, you know, a folk singer and a metal band, or, you know,
Sure.
it's that kind of like hyper eclectic thing. You know, the Black Cat Tavern on Broadway, which is a venue that we book most of our shows in. It's a great venue. But they have open mics every week and they have, you know, all kinds of stuff going on there. But there's a lot of good music venues in Saskatoon. It's just none of them are particularly focused on hip hop. You have to kind of book yourself in there and put an event on kind of on your own.
So I just checked and wanted to make sure I got everybody who you had featured on this album, but like you've got Ghetto Socks, Rel McCoy, the Mighty Rhino, and it looks like Bex. Now, are these all artists from outside of Saskatchewan?
Well, no. So Bex is like one of my oldest friends. We went to high school together.
Okay.
She sings the chorus and the last verse on the song Tomorrow on the album. She's been on most of my projects. She was on the title track on Beautiful. I think we didn't get a chance to do something for Things I Found, but she was also on the first album, Fall 7, Rise 8. Her and I also made a duo mixtape together that's on my Bandcamp from before I started releasing my stuff more professionally.
Cool.
So she grew up in Saskatoon as well. She's living in Regina now. Amazing soul R&B singer. And just, one of the best people I know.
And hey, just to interject about Bandcamp, there's no reason that you can't release things professionally on Bandcamp. I tell everybody if you're buying music through Bandcamp.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, before I started releasing my music more widely and learned about distributors and things like that. Yeah, her and I have a duo called 11 Victory, which is the high school that we went to is on the intersection of 11th Street and Victoria Avenue in Saskatoon. So we kind of named it after that. Cool. The other artists are all from outside of Saskatchewan. Obviously, Ghetto Socks is well known. He's from Halifax. Yeah. Rel McCoy's from Toronto. So is the Mighty Rhino.
Yeah, so I've recognized those three names and have played them, and I'm a bit familiar with them, to various degrees. But so I guess where I was leading to is like, how did you link with those MCs, or how do you go about finding other MCs to work with? Because like, are these guys you've met doing shows, or?
Yeah, in some cases, like Rel McCoy has done a lot of work with my homie Rational. Rational's a rapper from Saskatoon, super dope rapper. I would recommend looking up his music. Cool. But Rational used to fly out east to record his projects at Rel's crib. Rel did the production, and so they just had like a really good working relationship. And I met Rel through Rational one of the times Rel was in Saskatoon for shows, hung out a little bit. Then we both played the same festival in Winnipeg a few years ago, hung out there, and just like kind of had social media connections after that and chatted a little bit. The Mighty Rhino and I made friends on Twitter and just like became awesome internet friends. We talk all the time. He's
one of the best follows in Canadian hip hop, I would say.
Oh, he's the best. Yeah, absolutely one of the best follows in Canadian hip hop. One of the like most boisterous sort of outgoing dudes you could know. And so we just made friends.
Yeah. That dude sent me a drop that's like more entertaining than most people's full fucking songs are. Like he just goes in for like 2 minutes, like naming off his aliases and stuff. So yeah, much love to the Mighty Rhino.
Yeah, he's a dude. He and I actually have a duo album coming out. I don't want to put a date on it yet, but it's getting pretty close to done. Good. Some pretty interesting guests and a lot of really fun songs.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
And then Ghetto Socks, I was just a fan of. I met him in passing at shows that he's played here, but like we didn't like know each other. Yeah. But when I made that song, I knew that I didn't want to do 2 verses on it. I knew that I needed someone else, and it just like it felt like such a Ghetto Socks song to me. It's a humorous, it's storytelling. I was like, well, I'll send him my email and see if we can make something work. And he got back to me right away and was super cool about it. So that was really dope.
Always a good look reaching out to the OGs on the scene and getting them involved on it. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that I have to get better at doing, is reaching out to people. My networking skills are not amazing. But
see, honestly, like that's kind of like I mentioned that I want to get more music into more listeners' ears, but at the same time, I want this to be a way for artists to learn about other artists and find people to work with too, right? And so, that's a lofty aspiration, I know. There's all sorts of ways to network online, but I feel like a lot of hip-hop heads kind of get it in our mind that, like, hip-hop is boots on the ground, and if you're not out on the corner in a cypher doing it, then you're not a real MC or whatever. And, like, so people kind of get this, like, standoffish, like, you don't want to approach people online and be that online guy looking to, hey, let's build or whatever. But yeah, I think especially in places that are smaller markets, like maybe Saskatoon, or like I'm in Lethbridge, and spent a decade in Edmonton before this, but in smaller markets, I feel like you kind of need to reach out online and build. I mean, like there has to be a level of organicness to it, but it's an interesting dynamic to try to get your music out to more people, from a small place where hip hop maybe isn't as deeply rooted as it would be in some of the bigger centers or whatever. So, I can respect the grind, and I see the moves you're making, doing different projects with different producers. I think, you know, that's a great way to kind of share fan bases, and bringing in different MCs to do collaborations with is a great way to share fan bases. And like you said, you were a hip hop, sorry, a comic nerd too, and like I read all sorts of comics, and I've made this correlation too, that like for me, I've discovered tons of artists from features, and it's like, you know, you might be reading a Spider-Man comic and see some other character that you then go off and check out their comics and stuff, right? Like it's a parallel to that. So features in hip hop have always been just like my favorite part of hip hop almost, you know, like to hear different artists and the styles that they can bring on the same beat is always one of my favorite things. How you know, a good MC can be instantly recognizable, whatever beat he jumps on, right? You're gonna recognize Busta Rhymes whether he's rapping fast or slow. You know,
absolutely.
So, you know, props on doing what you can to bring in other outside, you know, hip hop heads to the project or whatever. The other reason that I think MCs should be doing that is because then when you go do tours, you've got other support in, you know, in different cities that actually can open or help push tickets, and that are recognizable artists that, you know, aren't just whoever the promoter chose to put on in front.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any tours coming up? Yeah.
I don't have any tours planned anytime soon. I don't get on the road that often. I did a few shows in like Edmonton and area just before COVID with I assume if you're out that, you know, Chad Elliott McGee. Yep. We did a few road shows like before COVID. I play Regina pretty often. It's, you know, a quick jaunt from here.
Right.
But mostly I've been playing in Saskatoon lately. I just had a show, like you were talking about, Ray the Nihilist, super dope Saskatoon rapper.
Yeah.
He's out on tour right now with Junk and Young Stitch.
Yeah.
But he did a show in Saskatoon just before he was leaving that we played. And I have another show coming up at the end of the month with some other dope Saskatoon artists. Ev Thompson, if you're familiar with him.
I'm not, but I will be.
Yeah, check him out. Super dope. He started a duo with another rapper from here named Curls. They're called Harvey Dent. They're having an album release party at the end of the month, which is going to be super dope. I'm going to be there. Saskatoon rapper named Reggie T is going to be there. Artist named KIA, who I'm not yet familiar with, but planning on becoming familiar with before then, is going to be there at the Capitol, which is a super dope venue in Saskatoon. And then, just trying to plan as much stuff throughout the summer as I can.
Right on. Yeah. Looking forward to all of it. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate you, you know, dropping names and helping us, you know, put a little spotlight on the Saskatchewan scene. You're the first artist I've talked to from out there, and hope to play a lot more of your music coming up. I'm looking forward to those projects you mentioned. And again, I guess I should ask, where can people keep up with you as far as like, where are you most active? You mentioned Twitter.
I'm on Twitter. I'm not the most active on really any of my social medias, but you can find me everywhere at Skizza306, SKIZZA 306. Right. You can find me there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's also my Steam name if you want to play video games with me. You know, I've been playing lots of Elden Ring. Basically anywhere you can find me that way. That's also my Gmail, Skizza306 at Gmail. If there's artists or radio, and if anyone has any reason to reach out to me, feel free to do that. That would be awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for your time. I appreciate you coming by, and respect.
Yeah, thank you, man. This was great.